Sometimes I just want to sleep core all day core because I have no motivation core. But today we do have a bit of motivation and we will use it to discuss the newest Royalcore trend that all the TikTok, Insta and Pinterest girlies are obsessing about. We see it in the resurgence of the corset as daily wear, we see it in the Bridgerton craze that happened last year and is bound to happen this year as well most probably, and then we also see it in the fact that the 9,000th movie about Princess Diana has not only been made but also nominated for an Oscar this year. Needless to say, humanity is and always will be obsessed with the royals and subsequently with their fashion. We look at celebrities and we endlessly discuss what they are wearing. It's a tale as old as time. Something parasocial relationships, you have got to know the gist by now. Now, one of those celebrities are the royal family, and people have been following the royal fashion closely since the dawn of times, trying to recreate their style in order to feel a little bit more closer to royalty themselves. For example, Queen Victoria first wore a white wedding dress in 1840, and what are we all wearing right now to weddings? Correct, white wedding dresses. I see you're listening attentively. Royalcore can mean a lot for many people, but let's look more closely into this aesthetic and break down its core elements. The Royalcore hashtag on TikTok has 278 million views, and its popularity can also be seen on Instagram as well as on YouTube. I was becoming more and more aware of the rise of this aesthetic with the rise of these playlists on YouTube called "This playlist will make you feel like a 19th century villain," "You're a hopeless romantic but you are in the 19th century," "You're studying in a haunted library with ghosts," and so on. I have this thing where I think people are aware of all the things that I find on the internet, but it looks like I may not be hanging out in the same corner of the internet as the others, so if you did not encounter these kinds of playlists before, you're welcome. The Royalcore aesthetic has a lot of subgenres as well, like the princesscore, knightcore, kingcore, queencore, regencycore, rangercore, basically any core that is somewhat related to a royal family. The guidelines to follow this aesthetic are simple. You have to have royal blood and live in a 19th century castle, and if you don't, then you have to wear a corset and that'll work as well. Other than that, puffy and ruched dresses, long gloves, bows in your hair, balloon sleeve shirts, embroidered blouses, tailored pants, pearls as jewelry, as well as crowns and tiaras are also welcome. In terms of hairstyle, people wear their hair half up, braided or in a bun. When reading about the Royalcore aesthetic, one thing becomes clear very quickly, and it is the case with a lot of other aesthetics as well, and this is the Eurocentrism that is embedded in its description. I made a great video talking about the Eurocentrism in dark academia and cottagecore, and a lot of the points can be attributed to Royalcore as well. Even though we mainly see Eurocentric characteristics attributed to Royalcore, that should not be the case, and this aesthetic can look in many interesting and different ways, showcasing different cultures and customs. I mean, every country has or has had their own type of royalty. Royalcore is not only about fashion, it is also a way of living, as it is often the case with these aesthetics. This comprises palatial architecture, interior design, and even the books that people read, as well as the movies and hobbies that people adopt. In terms of interior design, a luxury bed retailer talks about how, as the name suggests, this aesthetic can be achieved through taking inspiration from periodic and lavish royal-based settings, mainly between the 5th and 19th century, rather than more modern monarchies. This usually involves either deep, rich tones such as purples, blues, or reds, or muted pastel tones such as pinks, whites, and light blues and greens, accented with a metallic such as gold or silver to add a touch of luxury, the Palace of Versailles being a fantastic reference point. The TV series Bridgerton really paved the way for the concept of taking period fashion and art and giving it a modern twist, and a lot of the aesthetics that we see resurfacing are actually doing the same thing. Royalcore does not care about historical accuracy. It is merely inspired by Regency fashion and reinvents it in a modern way, for example, wearing corsets over t-shirts, wearing short puffy dresses that would have been scandalous 200 years ago, but right now when looking at them you are saying that's a princess. The string quartet rendition of Ariana Grande's Thank You Next song in Bridgerton switched something in our brain on a fundamental level, and since then we are trying to find as many ways as possible to incorporate vintage aesthetics into modern attires. One of those Royalcore dresses that look modern and old at the same time are the Selkie dresses, that honestly are becoming a phenomenon of their own, like the strawberry dress by Lirika Matoshi back in its time. The Selkie dresses are puffy pastel, short and long, and they make you feel like you belong on a cotton candy cloud. One Glamour article says, It is a garment that would spontaneously come into being if Marie Antoinette tripped on her petticoat and fell into Sailor Moon's arms. It's cotton candy, lip gloss, and soap bubbles spun into a sheer fabric. It's everywhere and it's bringing up a lot of feelings. The Selkie dress blurs the line between clothing and costume, and it became popular because during the panna cotta, I just love how in all my videos I keep saying panna cotta, but I never really explained what it means. I'm going to give you some clues. It will get my video demonetized. I can also call it panini and panorama, but I chose panna cotta because it's one of my favorite desserts, and it's the reason why you have to stay at home for the last 2 years, and why I started a YouTube channel. As I was saying, obsessing over big puffy dresses came during the panna cotta, because by staying at home and having no reason to dress fancily, we started to feel less fancily. And there's a term for that, and it's called enclothed cognition. It basically means embodying characteristic of a person by merely dressing like them. So do you want to feel like someone staying in their pajamas all day, or do you want to feel like a 19th century princess? For a lot of people, the latter was the answer. Shakayla Forbes-Bell, the consumer fashion psychologist for Afterpay, says, for example, when you wear a lab coat that you associate with doctors, you become more attentive. When you wear an empire waist dress that you associate with royalty, you feel more majestic. When it comes to our favorite TV characters, we're drawn to their clothes and adopt their style because it allows us to embody the traits we admire in them. I suspect people are adopting this trend as a way to add a touch of elegance to life, which has been made increasingly unrefined as a result of the panna cotta. And thus the Selkie dress has risen into popularity. But alas, there is no unturned stone in this video, and there are no truly unproblematic things in this world. The Selkie dress has been the source of some discourse around the fact that is wearing dresses that little girls usually wear infantilize women, and are we bad feminists for wanting to wear them? It is true that princess dresses are usually reserved in our society for little girls that see pink glitter as their main personality trait, but who is to say that 25-year-old women are not allowed to do the same? Critic Jess Joho writes, the Selkie puff dress, it can be argued, is part of a pantheon of fashion aesthetics that, while gorgeous and potentially empowering in some ways, still glorify the infantilization of adult women and by extension the sexualization of underage girls. Japan's storied Lolita fashion scene is also often subject to this same debate, though it comes with its own socio-cultural, historical, and community-specific nuances. But is it really the case? Kimberly Gordon, the creator of Selkie, says, men hate the dress, and she hears regularly from men online and in real life about their disdain for the puff dress. Women tell her that their boyfriends don't like them. They kind of scare guys, she says. When you wear them, you'll be the center of any room, and for that reason, they're kind of more powerful than they are. As we become more and more aware of the male gaze, a lot of women have started to make a conscious effort to avoid wearing certain clothing and aesthetics, or at least to wear them with intention and consciously. In my personal experience, I have found that the princesscore and cottagecore communities are heavily dominated by women who leave compliments under each other's posts and support each other. Even myself, I have found myself consciously straying away from more revealing attires when I did not want to garner the male attention on the interwebs, and gravitated to more feminine and girly aesthetic, and it has worked. And every time an account with a profile pic with a 40-year-old man would interact with any of my content, he would find himself instantaneously in the blocked list. Like, sir, go spend your time with your grandchild. You should not be hanging out on my Insta. And I think with the rise of many aesthetics that are somehow linked to our childhoods, like the princesscore, fairycore, the renaissance of the 2000s cartoons, and twilightcore, girls and women are gravitating towards interests they had as a child and for which they were made fun of when they were growing up. But royalcore is not only about the clothes, it is also about the history. And it's interesting that when talking about royalcore, people do not usually imagine Queen Elizabeth II, but they imagine girls with tiaras running away with their gowns in the wind. Although I don't think those two are that separated, and that becomes even more clear in the case of the insatiable obsession the public eye has with Princess Diana even after her passing. Everybody knows her tragic story, but even more tragic is that a big reason for her unhappiness and ultimately her passing is everybody wanted to know everything about her, and they did with the help of the paparazzis. The people working at tabloids would say that everything she touched or referenced would turn to gold. That was the power of interest of the public in her and in her story. She even had 2 wedding dresses designed in case one of their design would get leaked before the wedding. We tell and retell her story over and over again, and even in 2022, more than 20 years after her passing, Kristen Stewart still gets an Oscar nominee for her portrayal in the latest biopic called Spencer. Don't get me wrong, it's a good movie, but my recurring thought while watching it was, when will people just let her rest for once? Didn't humanity understand its lesson already? That our interest in her life, although with a good intent, is what led to her unhappiness and the terrible car crash caused by the paparazzis chasing her. Princess Diana was not a royal. She was something more powerful. She was a commoner that turned into royalty. And this story is so alluring to the public eye. The craze over royals has many overlaps with our obsession with celebrities, but it is also different in a way. Dr. Donna Rockwell, a clinical psychologist who specializes in celebrity and fame, says that the royal family's strict adherence to procedure and tradition is key. It's comforting to see a structure where that structure seems to create a semblance of order. So in the same way, I think that when an adult is feeling a sense of inner chaos, it's comforting, even neurologically speaking, to be able to observe something of structure. We grew up on Disney stories with princesses as heroines, and so seeing real people live out that fantasy in real life, at least to the public's limited awareness, is bound to keep that interest high. And a story that is even more satisfying to follow is the one where a commoner marries into such a lifestyle. We want to know, did they win the lottery or did it turn into a curse? Both of these outcomes would be as satisfying for the public that is insatiably looking for a new story. And this ever-gazing public eye does not stop only at the royals' personal lives, it also follows very carefully their fashion. This is what is called the Meghan effect, in which Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, would wear a piece of clothing from a brand, and the next day that brand would be sold out and their turnover would double. Because again, wearing clothing linked to royalty makes us feel that we ourselves become closer to royalty. We live in an era in which you too can look like a royal. You are just one click and one successful internet payment transaction away. However, that was not always the case. Sumptuary laws are laws that try to regulate consumption. Black Law's dictionary defines them as laws made for the purpose of restraining luxury or extravagance, particularly against inordinate expenditures for apparel, food, and furniture. In reality, they were there to impose social hierarchy and morals. The purpose of these laws was to also limit the market for expensive imported goods so that only royalty would have easier access to them. They were also enforced so that it was easier to identify social rank and privilege, which in turn could be used for social discrimination. Moreover, if commoners would have the right to appear wealthy or wealthier than the ruling nobility, this could inspire rebels and traitors that would want to overthrow that ruling, which in the 17th century was a big no-no. Thus, silk, velvet, taffeta, leather, and fur were usually reserved for royalty. This is why now we tend to associate the purple color with royalty, because in the past only they were allowed to wear it. The color blue is one we also associate with wealthiness. The natural pigments of the color blue are rare, and so blue dye was especially difficult and expensive to manufacture. The sumptuary laws are something that were present all around the world. In China, for example, during the Ming Dynasty, the size and decoration of graves and mausoleums were regulated by such laws, and so it comes as no surprise why wearing clothes that the royals are wearing is so appealing to people, whether these are modern or past royalty. People are not only interested in modern royalty, a lot of them are also researching about historical royalties. For example, the Romanov Russian family has become a great interest, especially after its popularization by the Disney animated movie called Anastasia. There were rumors that the youngest princess has escaped the revolution and survived, and so again the public has become enamored with the idea of a lost princess. It is needless to say that romanticizing monarchies comes with its own dangers. Most monarchies in this world have a history of oppression and colonialism. Even modern royal families are subject to criticism over the promotion of an oppressing system to many countries and people. The romanticization of any past aesthetic comes with the risk of highlighting and involuntarily adopting some problematic aspects. So a responsible exploration of the Royalcore aesthetics needs to be taken into consideration. I am not really sure what is the overlap of people supporting monarchies with people wearing frilly dresses, but I might suspect there isn't such a strong correlation there. I see Royalcore as a less accessible aesthetic compared to dark academia and cottagecore, and perhaps that is the reason that it is less popular. I mean, to look royal, you kind of have to look expensive. And even though some of the clothes, accessories, and furniture can be found more affordably through vintage shopping and thrifting, the reality is that there are less opportunities for people to engage meaningful with this aesthetic, even though these opportunities are higher compared to the Sumptuary lost period. Some of the influencers with this aesthetic also incorporate designer clothes, shoes, and accessories into their style to give it a more royal look. In this capitalistic era, the true royalty are the multi-billionaires. However, their aesthetic is much harder to incorporate now, unless you have a few billions of dollars lying around and want to spend 2 minutes in space, not even talking about the climate pollution that it can lead to. But 19th century royal attire today has become more accessible than ever, and people are enjoying playing around with fashion and different styles, living out their fantasies that they read in books in real life, as well as heal their inner child and feeling nostalgic over their past hobbies and interests from childhood. Considering that ball season is still a thing in Vienna, and that there are masquerade balls and festivals around the world, it is very tempting to hop on a plane and go out and live your fantasy of becoming a princess for a day. This was a video that some of my subscribers asked me to cover. If you have in mind other aesthetics or topics that you want me to discuss, let me know. Do not hesitate to interact with the buttons below, and see you soon. Bye!